Hey guys, what's going on? Back with another zombies video. And as you guys know, some of the impossible Easter eggs were solved for Shadows of Evil. Most of them being visual Easter eggs, narrative, backstory Easter eggs. Not really anything even as Jason Blundell has said, that you can activate or do steps for. It's just kind of visual Easter eggs that are there, or textual Easter eggs, I think might be the actual word that he used. So it made me start thinking about maybe future storylines for maybe the maps that we've had in the past, maybe to answer some questions that might come up after solving some of these impossible Easter eggs. And I guess Treyarch and maybe Call of Duty uh, found out over the years that the Ether story is always going to be everyone's favorite story. I mean, they tried Chaos, and then they tried a couple other things, but the Ether story is always going to be the premise. Basically, the premise Ether story is always going to be the one, I guess, for nostalgic reasons, that people are going to love the most. So again, it made me start thinking about maybe getting some answers for some stuff that are impossible Easter eggs. That again, once you solve stuff, and I guess it goes with the whole um, rabbit chasing the rabbit down the hole theory, that it's just going to open up more and more questions. So one of the impossible Easter eggs, and I'm not even sure if I mentioned it, so this might actually be kind of a reveal for that also. But some people might know that it's based off of Chicago and it's called Morgue City. But it's also loosely based off of Atlantis. Some of the rituals and some of the backstory mimic or parallel stuff that is in the Atlantis lore. But it and that's just the storyline stuff, but it actually is inspired by real life stuff also, either like movies or other video games. I don't think I'm gonna say what the video game is, but you might be able to catch on to it. I mean, it's pretty obvious if you again do your research, and I hate to always say that. Like I always kind of want to keep the door like maybe half open, where not to give all of Treyarch's secrets away, and then also it's a way to motivate zombie players, the zombies community, and zombie YouTubers to go ahead and maybe start searching for some stuff that haven't really been solved yet by the mainstream YouTube channels. So, with all that being said, what I wanted to talk about or bring up the question is, who built Morgue City and why? That would be an amazing um, storyline that I would want to see either COD Mobile or Treyarch uh, go down and answer. I know COD Mobile is pretty much the the game mode now, or the game that's kind of tying up loose ends, giving some answers to what maybe Primus have been up to, and some stuff like that. So it would be kind of cool. I mean, I would obviously prefer it, and obviously be pretty cool and a lot better to see it in the Black Ops series. But how awesome it would be to get some answers, not necessarily in maybe Intel. I wouldn't want it in Intel, but I know because of COVID-19, they're staying away from doing more uh, cutscenes, and everything's going to be more in Intel. It cuts down on time and cost, but it'd be kind of cool to maybe get a backstory or a cutscene somewhere down the road if they're still looking for ideas for the Ether story to tie in with the Dark Ether story that's going on now. But how cool it would be, unless it's locked away in a cipher, because there are some ciphers that have recently been solved that kind of still ties into Shadows of Evil. But it would be kind of awesome to see a new map or maybe a prequel to Shadows of Evil, because some people might know, like again, going with the Atlantis storyline, that it is based off of Atlantis, and after you do the Pack-a-Punch steps and the rituals to open Pack-a-Punch, you find out that we're underwater. How it's supposed to be like a giant squid monster, and again, I've mentioned to people, whenever it's raining in a map or there's a lot of water, it shows or indicates that we're underneath water. We're in like maybe the Atlantis storyline, and obviously this map is heavily based on Atlantis. But so the question's gonna be, and I know it's kind of like that whole SpongeBob thing where like how could you have like a river as you're seeing now underneath water and ships, um, unless there's different densities of water, because that's something in real life and with science that like you can still have a river underneath water. If you look at some documentaries and stuff like that on maybe Discovery Channel or somewhere on the internet, you can actually have rivers or lakes underneath the water because of different densities. It pools differently than regular water. If it's very, very salty and very, very dense, you can actually have situations like this where a boat could be actually floating underneath the water on another body of water. So with all, I mean, that's too science stuff, but it'd be kind of cool to find out who built Morgue City underneath water, like why, what was the reason, maybe to get away from um, the apocalypse that was happening outside the world, how their way of escaping, or they knew, kind of like an underground bunker, I guess, in a way, how they may know. And this might actually answer more of the questions, but it'd be kind of cool to see it in the map, or maybe like a cutscene. Maybe Shadows of Evil gets reimagined or remastered down the road. But again, it would be kind of awesome to kind of explain who or why they built it. Is it because of the apocalypse that was going on above ground? Maybe they and this is in a couple movies and it's also in a couple video games, but maybe somebody knew that there was a apocalypse or had some type of warning that it was going to happen, so maybe within like a 30-year period or however long it might take to build a city underneath uh, the ocean, like how long it would take would be one question, and then what would be the reason why they would have built it underground to escape from the aliens? Maybe the aliens or the Ponticans don't like water, and the safest place would be underneath the ocean somewhere. So they knew ahead of time, like, let's build this giant city, so when this does happen, it can save us, and we can be safe uh, underneath the water. Which I guess in this case it really doesn't. It didn't really work out because you still get zombies and stuff underneath the water. But again, the question would be more, why would they have chosen to do it? Maybe at the time they weren't aware. Maybe they had wrong information that the apothecons couldn't go underneath water for some reason. But again, I'm not going to dive into too much of like the actual real life backstory or where the storyline comes from. But again, showing or hoping that maybe in COD Mobile or in another Black Ops game down the road that we would see some of it come to life, I guess, in a way. Because there are a lot of unanswered questions. Even though a lot of impossible Easter eggs have been solved on Shadow of Evil, it still, again, it leads to more questions. And I know the saying goes that you end up chasing the rabbit down the hole, and you kind of get caught in this whole web of like information and like trying to piece stuff together, which I guess would be kind of cool to try and dive into that. But there is also, like I mentioned before, an endless amount, and like I mentioned before, there's an endless amount of ways that um, Treyarch or Call of Duty can go, because there's so much unanswered questions in all the maps since World at War. Some of it I figured out, some of it I've mentioned on Twitter and other videos and stuff like that, but there are so many answers and so many information inside the Ether story that they can basically continue the story for another like 10 years, 20 years, and have so much information from the older maps that never got answered. Some of it I know was in the Chronorium. Some of it's in ciphers that we might never ever figure out what's in it unless you get like a hint on it. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it at that again. So it'd be a cool way to maybe find out why Morgue City was built underneath the ocean or water in a future storyline, or maybe in. I don't. I mean, I love COD Mobile Comics, but I don't know necessarily if I would want it in that. It just seems like it's I know they're also trying to get away from repeating the same story over and over and over again. And I know the devs don't like that. The studio probably doesn't like it, even though it's probably the biggest money maker is the Ether story. I know if you're a writer, you don't want to keep diving into the same story over and over again, repeating the same thing. Um, that you want to kind of create some new stories, uh, and then maybe at the end connect it all or something like that. Anyways, I'm gonna leave it at that. I'll see you guys later.